still living there, and it is the worst polluted area. All the industries that have sprung up along that bank, they've concentrated the environmental damage and the pollution across all of those families. Really impressive. And this exhibition has been put together by artists and scientists in an incredibly forensic manner. It is really good, technically. It's not like one of these where you grit your teeth and think, I'm sure this is going to be worthy, but a bit boring, and I'll have difficulty convincing my friends to go and enjoy it. I won't say it's enjoyable, because it's stark, it's brutal, it's real, but it is really good. And anybody who looks at that word forensic may recall that the leader of the opposition in this country is regularly praised for his forensic analysis. So we can have our own views about that, but forensic is a good word, and what they've put up in here is a very good exhibition. Now, as some people will know, and forgive me if I repeat some information, but I've got some new. Basically, the artists who put this exhibition up put a statement on the front door. Hills, have you got the wording of the statement with you? No, not necessarily. All right, this is where technology gets bad. Yeah, I've got it. I just got it on another...
Put the speaker down, John, then it'll stop feeding back.
I know.
Put it down.
Anyway, the trouble is, Ian, I can't shift from one screen to the other, and I've got the university's letter up at the moment. I'm going to need to read the university's letter too. But the statement expressed the solidarity of all the artists involved. Thank you. Expressed the solidarity of all the artists involved, and said that they supported the Palestinians' struggle for liberation in exactly the same way as other liberation struggles, and indeed anti-discrimination struggles across the world. Struggles including those against anti-Semitism, against oppression, against racism. And they put this statement up, and this statement was on the front of the gallery so everyone could see it. So you went in, it was a tremendous statement. I mean, let's give them credit. It was tremendously good by those artists to put this statement up in support of the Palestinians, whose misfortunes they had accurately depicted. The bombing of Gaza and the clouds that emerged from that bombing, full of bits of bombs. They could even identify the US bomb that had fallen there from the parts that were in the clouds, the shape of the cloud caused by a particular bomb, the body parts, fragments of which remained in those clouds. This is incredible investigation, and they saw that. They saw the use of white phosphorus. People may have heard of this appalling, damaging substance that had been rained down on the people of Gaza. They showed and went into detail of the bombs that had been dropped near the hospitals in Gaza as well. And they showed, perhaps most graphically, the way in which the Israelis were crop spraying. When I say crop spraying, I may have to just indicate this a bit for those who haven't seen it, but they pictured the plane on the Israeli side of the border with Gaza. They pictured this plane going up and down and seemingly crop spraying inside the Israeli side of the border, but when the wind was blowing towards the sea. So the clouds of herbicide and other damaging chemicals were swept across the border into Gaza, half a mile, to destroy the Gaza farmers' crops and vegetables. And they then had footage of those farmers, of the people who were suffering that damage and destruction. That is the agricultural damage that the Israelis may say, well, we didn't bomb Gaza. Well, they did the next best thing. They simply sprayed the poison and let it drift across to the Gazan side. So all of these things are in this exhibition, and the artist rightly said, we support the Palestinians in their resistance to what is going on. And then some UK Israeli lawyers. Anybody here who's a UK Israeli lawyer? I know there's a lawyer here, but that's not the same thing. He wasn't invited. The UK Israeli lawyers said, we don't like this. It will cause upset in the community. We want you to take it down. So what did the university do? Have a meeting with them, allegedly with some other Jewish groups. Now, I know there are Jewish groups here today. Were any of you invited to this meeting? No, all right, silence will do. People shaking their heads. I don't mind a no out loud, but no, you weren't. So this meeting took place, and as a result, The UK Israeli lawyers said, we want the statement down, and what did the university say? Touch the forelock, yes, of course, we'll take the statement down. So when people realised the statement had gone down, a lot of complaints were made. So the university got the Whitworth Gallery to close the exhibition on Sunday. The gallery itself is closed regularly at the moment, Monday and Tuesday. And on Wednesday, without any signs on this building, without any notice to people who'd got themselves tickets or whatever, they've just closed it. There's nothing, there's no explanation whatsoever. So it's pretty craven and cowardly by this gallery, as well as by the university, who were still frantically sending emails out to anyone who had protested at 10:30 last night. And the artists said, if you take that statement down, we are pulling this exhibition. I think it's hugely to their credit, and we should give a show of applause to the artists. They said you can't have our exhibition unless it's got the statement. So, obviously, people have protested since then, and this is hot off the press, which is why I'm fiddling with the usual glasses and technology to get anywhere near it, and the trouble is it's about 5 pages long. But this is the president of the university writing back to say about the Cloud Studies exhibition. Can you hear over the back over there, by the way? If not, do come in a bit further forward, or angle the speaker a bit. But it said, we recognise the Cloud Studies exhibition by forensic architecture raises complex issues. Tell you what, come out here and put it that way. We recognise it raises complex issues. Raises different views across different communities, and as a university and gallery, we are also mindful of our role in creating spaces for debate and an academic and artistic freedom. Hang on, I mean, I don't want to heckle every line of this, but every time I read this, artistic freedom, they had the freedom to put the statement up. This is a space, creating space for debate and academic and artistic freedom. Where is the academic and artistic freedom? Anyway, the exhibition, and particularly a written statement by the artists, has led to some serious concern from a number of people and organisations, including local community groups. Oh! Anybody here live locally?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Were you raising concerns, asking for the statement to be taken down? Anyway, having considered these issues carefully with various stakeholders. All right, anybody here got a stake? Anybody here want to be a stakeholder? You're a student, I think you'll count, but you weren't asked either. We concluded last night that it is important for the exhibition to remain open in full at the Whitworth, and we expect this to occur later this week. Okay, let's be pleased the exhibition to remain open. The university, as a non-political organisation, has tried to balance extremely complex issues raised, but we believe the worst outcome for all parties would have been to close this exhibition. All right, fair enough so far. The exhibition expresses the views of contributing artists. They do not necessarily represent the views of the University of Manchester. They've been contested by some. The case studies address complex international issues. The Whitworth is mindful of artistic freedoms and the various duties. These rights must be considered alongside other rights, blah, blah, blah. Importantly, the Cloud Studies exhibition is shown in the protective and academic environment of a university gallery and within the context of a history of art that has always encompassed provocation and challenge. So if this protective and academic environment of a university gallery simply touches the forelock to the UK Israeli lawyers and takes the statement down, where does that leave its protective and academic environment in a context of provocation and challenge, etc.? So, we recognise the concerns raised, and in particular about the inclusion of a written statement by forensic architecture displayed at the entrance. That's why the Whitworth has developed a space which gives voice to different perspectives on the issues raised by the exhibition and help contextualise them. It will be displayed prominently in the gallery. Now, I'm reading that slightly closely, but my reading of the it is that this is the space to give voice to different perspectives. And I'm only guessing, because of course we don't have the university here and the gallery's been closed, so we can't ask any of the staff, but I'm guessing that the it might be that they let the artist's statement go on a notice board somewhere buried away inside, surrounded by a load of other statements by, let's guess who, a range of stakeholders and the UK-Israeli lawyers. So one of our demands will be, obviously, that the statement's back in full, prominently displayed on the front door, which is where everyone should see it. I've then got 2 paragraphs about Whitworth governance matters, and they're going to look with stakeholders about changes to their governance. They're going to consider government proposals to expand further through legislation the rights of freedom of speech. Ring any alarm bells with academics and students here? So the Whitworth, as part of its governance, is going to be talking to the government about freedom of speech. I know whose freedom of speech I would trust, and that's the artists from forensic architecture. And I know precisely whose freedom of speech I would not trust, and that is Boris Johnson and Priti Patel and the load of people who, forensically or otherwise examined by Her Majesty's very loyal opposition, sit in Parliament doing absolutely nothing. We will only change this. We will only win this. We will only beat the university if we show protests like this, if everybody here sends in those emails to the university repeatedly and preferably at 10:30 at night to annoy them while they're still up with their late night Horlicks trying to write back their replies, and goes and knocks on the door of Nancy Rothwell, the Vice-Chancellor, and anybody else who's signing those emails back from the university. We will only win this through protest. And this university, which I'm sure Frank will say more about, has a disreputable history, wanting to commemorate the Balfour Declaration of 1917, 100 years later, 2017. There'll be people here who were with me as we chased them off the university, thanks to the student protests, and made them camp out in some posh hotel in the middle of town. This is a university that has invested in Israeli arms and chemicals and so on, and they have had to disinvest in some of that as a result of the student activity. And again, Frank can say more about that. But we must not let this issue stay as it is. We must turn up, we must go and see the exhibition, we must demand through our feedback, governance, stakeholders, whatever route you like, we must demand that the right of forensic architecture to say we stand with Palestine is a right to which they are entitled, it's a right to which we are entitled, and we do all here stand with Palestine. Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
All right, yes, and Andy, do you want to read the statement? Thank you very much.
So for those of you who may not have had the chance to read the forensic architecture statement, this is it. Forensic architecture stands with Palestine. While working on this exhibition, we witnessed with horror yet another attack by Israel's occupation forces on Palestinians. Partners and friends in Gaza told us firsthand about their experiences of the attacks that destroyed multi-story buildings, homes, the offices of news organizations, schools, hospitals and businesses. The ferocity of the bombing produced man-made environmental disasters, with underground explosions leading to artificial earthquakes under Gaza City. At the same time, the targeting of agricultural storage facilities produced massive airquakes with clouds of toxic fumes covering entire residential areas. Everywhere across Palestine, we saw the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian neighborhoods by Israeli police and settlers, and raids and tear gas used against cultural centers, including some of our collaborators and friends at Dar Jasir. We honor the courage of Palestinians who continue to document and narrate events on the ground and to struggle against this violence, apartheid and colonisation. We believe that this liberation struggle is inseparable from other global struggles against racism, white supremacy, anti-Semitism, and settler colonial violence, and we acknowledge its particularly close entanglement with the black liberation struggle around the world.
I think we can all agree how powerful that statement is and how important it was that that was put up in front of that exhibit after the 11-day bombing of Gaza in May early this year, where over 260 people were killed, including 67 children. And that's only the latest in a long line of attacks on Gaza, which happens every day. Yes, there was a ceasefire, yes, that ended, but it didn't actually end, and it never actually ends for the people of Gaza, who are under constant occupation, constant attack, and live in a place which has been declared uninhabitable. Gaza is uninhabitable, but they have nowhere to go, they cannot flee, they are in the largest open-air prison in the world. Now, I'm a member of the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions campaign at the University of Manchester, which is a student campaign campaigning for the university to end all of its links with Israeli apartheid as part of the larger Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions movement in the world. I'm also here as a member of Apartheid Off Campus, which is the national student organisation of various networks across the country, various student groups campaigning on all these issues at all our universities across the country. Now, we use the word apartheid, and many of you will know where we use the word apartheid, but this was a city that stood against apartheid in South Africa. They burned the Barclay card, they marched against it. Our University Student Union is called the Steve Biko Building, after that heroic black liberationist who fought against apartheid. This university makes a big deal out of its social responsibility, about its ethics, about its contribution to humanity. It claims to care about the community. But we're the community, aren't we? We're here standing right now to tell them they don't represent us, because their attacks on the Palestinian people are an attack on us as well. And this is what we need to stop, this is what we need to stand against, and it is so amazing that we've all come out here today on such short notice to say that they cannot do this. They are not able to censor voices in solidarity with the Palestinian people, to censor Palestinian voices without any backlash. They can't do it. This has been reported all across the news. It's been in the Morning Star, it's been in the Guardian, it's been in the Mirror, it's been all across, and local Manchester reporting organisations as well. They're not going to get away with this. And this is why it's so important that we're here today. But I also want to talk about some of the other links that the University of Manchester still has with Israeli apartheid. John mentioned just there that until only last year, actually just about a year ago, the university had investments in Caterpillar Inc., which is a US construction company which builds the armoured bulldozers which the Israelis use to demolish Palestinian homes and villages. And after a 4-year campaign by students and members of the community and supporters and academics and many people who are here, they divested. They divested from that. It was about £500,000 and then another 10 million in other companies complicit in Israeli apartheid. And that was from a persistent, concerted campaign to demand divestment. And we can do it. We can win if we stand up and we protest and we stop what they're doing and we disrupt them and we tell them no. Now that was a year ago. Now there are more links. There are more links between the university and Israeli apartheid. There are two main ones, actually three main ones that we are now currently campaigning on. The first one is to do with graphene. Now I don't know how many people here know what graphene is or have heard of graphene research. But graphene is the university's flagship research program. It's the world's first 2D material, and it's incredible. It has many great scientific applications which could do loads of good for humanity. But the University of Manchester is more interested in its commercial applications in so-called defence, i.e. military applications which will be used on the people of Gaza, on the people of Kashmir, on the people of West Papua, on people all around the world fighting for their liberation. And we know that graphene has been used and has been sold to the Israelis for use to improve their drone technology. The main commercial partner for the Graphene Institute, the National Graphene Institute, which is just up the road there, is Viserion Inc., which is linked and a subsidiary of Israeli Aerospace Industries, which is the largest state-owned arms manufacturer in Israel. James Baker, who's the CEO of the National Graphene Institute, used to work for BAE Systems, one of the largest arms manufacturers in the world. And what he wants is to focus graphene's business model around defence, based on a lot of US models of how technology can be used to improve the military industry. Now, we've got to fight against this, and we can stop it, and we will stop it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the university has a student exchange program with the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Now, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem is in occupied East Jerusalem. Its Mount Scopus campus sits only, not far away, a couple of streets away, really, from Sheikh Jarrah, where recently we saw the uprisings and the resistance to the illegal evictions of Palestinian people. Now, that means that this university is sending its students to live and study on illegally occupied land. That is illegal under international law. It is illegal for the occupying power to move civilian population into the territory which it occupies. That is a breach of the 4th Geneva Convention. The university is complicit in the breach of international law. It is illegal. And we've got to talk about this, and we've got to stop it, we've got to keep campaigning. And not only is Hebrew U a university, it's also a training camp for the officers of the Israeli occupation forces. There is an arms base, a military base, in the university campus. And so Palestinians who live in the area, even those who study at the university, have to live and study next to Israeli soldiers who study at the university and are required to wear their uniform and carry a gun. This is the kind of place that our university has described as a reputable university which has links with many hundreds of others across the world, and therefore it's fine. Therefore it's fine, other people do it, and therefore it's okay. We wouldn't allow this. Or, well, some people would have allowed it with apartheid South Africa, and it was fought back against. But now we look back, and even the people who were bad at the time, they have to acknowledge that apartheid was wrong. But now it's today, now it's in Palestine, they're using the same excuses again. They're doing the same things again. This statement could have been about apartheid South Africa 30, 40 years ago. It easily could have been. And we have to fight that exact same struggle again here. And this is something that Nelson Mandela has talked about with Desmond Tutu, that what is happening in Palestine is apartheid. And in fact, Desmond Tutu said it was worse than what was happening in apartheid South Africa. And so that was the second thing. The last thing is something which a lot of academics have been campaigning on recently, which is the links between the University of Manchester and Tel Aviv University. There are various research links between this university and Tel Aviv University. And Tel Aviv University is one of the central institutions involved in the development of military technologies, of military tactics and strategies which are used to, and securitization strategies which are used to oppress the Palestinian people. Every single Israeli institution is complicit in the occupation, in the colonization, in the murder of the Palestinian people, especially Tel Aviv University. So that's what we're campaigning on. We're campaigning on all of these issues, and we demand, first of all, put this statement back and don't put anything else next to it. I do not want to see bullshit two-sides rubbish about Zionists and how it's a very complicated situation and we can't understand it. It's very simple. It's very, very, very simple. There are people who are oppressed, who are under occupation, who are being massacred, and there are people who are doing the massacre. And somehow that's an equal situation. It's not a conflict, it's an occupation. And so that's what we're fighting against, and that's why we're here today. And I just want to thank you all so much for coming out, especially when it has been raining earlier. But when the Palestinians fight, they fight against bullets and bombs, and they get sent to prison and they get tortured, and they are killed. We can put up with a bit of rain, we can come out on a Wednesday afternoon and show our support for them, because that's it's actually the least that we can do. So thank you very much for coming. I'm sure other people want to speak and show their support, but I just want to say free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Brilliant, round of applause for Brent there. And all of the students in mobilised. Now I am delighted to say, you may want to point it the other way, but I'm delighted to say I hadn't realised that we've got the person who organised the exhibition. Awesome! Let's have a big round of applause.
My name is Eyal Weitzman. I'm the Director of Forensic Architecture, and Samane Moafi is the researcher in charge of this exhibition. I guess the thing to do normally would be to thank you for coming here. But obviously, that has been extremely important for us in the difficult days since our exhibition was disfigured, since the statement, which was part of the exhibition, was removed. And having that solidarity is extremely moving and important. But I say, I'm not really going to thank you because we are here together in the same struggle. The quest here is not simply for that particular statement to come up, as important as it is. It is about what could be said within a university context, what we could do to show our support of Palestinians, what can we do to struggle against settler colonialism, to struggle against apartheid in Palestine, and how we can turn the universities and the art spaces that the universities provide into site of struggle and contestation. This struggle is important because it's about the limit of what could be said. Within the human rights community, first the Palestinian human rights organizations, then even Israeli human rights organizations, and within mainstream organizations such as Human Rights Watch, the term apartheid becomes the way to designate a very specific crime performed by the Israeli state on Palestinians. The institutionalization of racial division and bias into law and policy. That principle is accepted by mainstream organizations such as the UN and those organizations that I mentioned before. But that term seems to be impossible to say within a university context. What does it mean when we cannot use, when a university, we cannot use the terms that have been used by Palestinians in their struggles and by human rights organizations? What does it leave a university as a place for knowledge production, as a place for political understanding, as a place for political resistance, when we cannot have those terms? So effectively, we are standing here for the right to use within a university context terms such as apartheid, ethnic cleansing, settler colonialism, terms that designate and describe the reality that Palestinians are experiencing across the multiple area that Palestine is being divided into by Israeli government. You know, we speak about the occupation, but the occupation is not the whole story. There is those Palestinians that are living, I would say, trapped within the state of Israel. Perhaps they have citizenship. Perhaps they can even articulate their citizenship in voting right. But there are about 40-odd laws, other laws, that are completely and directly targeting them as people. And they extend from access to land, to migration, to freedom of movement. We are speaking about an attack on Palestinians that is actually divided across the multiple zones that are under Israeli control: Gaza, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Palestinians in diaspora. And I hope and I feel that there are here diaspora Palestinians who themselves now in Manchester have been targeted by an extension of that policy. This struggle does not only happen in Palestine, it's a worldwide struggle. And you're here fighting it just like our colleagues and friends are fighting it day in, day out in their town and villages, on their territories in Palestine. And I think that this is why that this struggle is absolutely essential and important. We are struggling together. You come here, I suppose, to reinstate our statement, but the battle is much bigger than that. It's about what are we allowed to, what the university would actually let us say, and how, when we say so, they would seek to moderate it with other voices. It is because you are here that the statement will be reinstated. The fact that you are here has already been out in the press, and the fact of that demonstration was known to everybody. And this is why this morning we in Forensic Architecture got an assurance that the statement will be placed. In fact, Samane and I are here to make sure the statement is where we put it, where we elected. And that's because of you. That is your struggle. When the university quoted to us the principle of the duties of equality and under certain kind of laws to do that actually bound a public institution in that duty, we insisted from the start that Palestinian communities in Manchester and the Palestinian solidarity movement in Manchester is part of the debate. That this debate is not simply because between a London-based organization, or even me as an Israeli Jew, and a Jewish community with different opinion that is here. That the discussion about Palestine need to absolutely involve Palestinian voices. I don't think they've been consulted, and the voices were not heard, but here you are, and the voices are heard loud and clear in what we are demanding. And I think that as you know, we have not, we just like you, we've heard about the fact that the statement is going to be up. We heard that there's going to be some kind of moderated discussion. We want to make sure that that discussion involves the voices of the Palestinian community here, that Palestinians are not left out of the discussion and the conversation about their land, about their relatives, about their heritage, about their country that is being pillaged and colonized by Israel. So that's all for me. Sam, if you want to say something also.
I'll add a line. I mean, we, as some of you might know, we're not necessarily an artist group. We're a university-based research unit, and we usually present our findings, our caseworks in national and international courts, in the media, in citizen tribunals, so on and so forth. And it's when those spaces for accountability are not available that we turn to cultural forums, we turn to universities, we turn into museums and galleries like the Whitworth, right? And we present our methodologies there, and we present our findings there to turn those spaces into a space of accountability. And I think it's because of your presence here that we've managed to do this now. That this is a space now to hold Manchester University accountable, and to hold the UK LFI accountable,
Thank you for that, and that's such great news. And yeah, I can only hope that forwards that the statement. Wow, so 1,000 letters have been received by the University of Manchester in complaints. So well done. That is fantastic. So I think Wakas would like to speak. After Wakas, I'd like to ask, are there any Palestinians here who would like to speak? If there are, and you would, then please come up, because, as he just said, it's so important that we hear the Palestinian voice and the Palestinian narrative, which is being excluded and has been excluded, and that's why we're here to fight. So I'll pass you on to Wakas, and then and yeah. Oh yes.
I'm Wakas from Oldham Peace and Justice, and from Oldham as well. I'm not sure what to say, because I didn't get to see the exhibition. But what I do know is when I visited in the West Bank, in the occupied West Bank and Israel in 2015, they laid empty villages, whole villages laid empty, like abandoned. So when the Nakba happened, the Palestinians had to flee their homes. And these empty villages, I think it was 500 villages, over 500 villages destroyed. And these villages have been turned into nature parks. That's what Israel calls them, nature parks. And in a nature park, you're not allowed to build, or you're not allowed to do anything in there. And there's just trees growing there. And they're trying to hide the Palestinian history and the Palestinian narrative. I've even seen them trying to claim Palestinian food and Palestinian dance and Palestinian culture. And when I was in Hebron in 2015, the old marketplaces had Arabic names, and Jews and Muslims used to live side by side, and they used to say in the same name, like Torah Meda and Babel Zawi, and like the graveyards all had the same names in Arabic. But when the settlers came along, they started to change the names of the streets and trying to erase the Palestinian history. And if you carry on like that, to try to erase someone's history is ethnic cleansing. You try to silence them, you try to erase them from history. And they don't even call them Palestinians, they call them Arabs. They call them Arabs. And the Palestinians says, we're not Arabs, we're Palestinians. Don't call us Arabs. And it's that trying to get rid of them. But the thing is, the Palestinians are really brave, and they've been going at it every single day since the Nakba and well before that. So we've got to keep coming out and supporting whatever it might be. It might be art, it might be music, it might be boycott. And it's all part of the same struggle. Like at the moment, in Oldham, there's an Israeli weapons manufacturer, the private largest Israeli arms company called Elbit Systems. And in Oldham it's called Franti Technology. We kind of have a rough idea what Franti does in Oldham. They might not supply the whole of the Israeli army or the Israeli occupation, but it's a small clock in a larger military industrial complex. So we have been protesting outside this weapons factory for over two and 3 years now, and we've got MPs and councillors involved. The local community know about it. It's been in the newspapers. People have been arrested. There's been lock-ons. We've given petitions. We've dropped letters off. And we would like people to come to Oldham and protest with us. And if anyone's got any ideas what we can do next, please let us know, because we're always open to ideas. And please follow and join Oldham Peace and Justice. Like, we'd love to have people down there. So it's Oldham Peace and Justice. You can come find me. And one of the announcements I have got, the Liverpool's Arms Fair. So there's a protest on September the 11th in Liverpool, and there is an arms fair, I think 12th or 12th of October in Liverpool. So there's more information out there. But the thing is, thank you for everyone for coming today, and you know what? It might seem small and insignificant, but it's not. History will be the judge of us. So leave it there. Thank you.